YouTube, what is up? It's been 7 months since I posted anything. Figured I'd post stuff. People keep joining the Discord and joining the Patreon, even though I don't post anything. It's pretty amazing. But a lot has happened since I last posted in, December last year. Have improved in many ways, have improved the long reads in many ways, have gotten back into shorting recently because by spending a couple years longing, learned a lot about how stocks top, about how certain control leads to certain moves, how how they set these plays up. Also, we've been talking a lot about the daily. Using the daily, we'll talk about the daily. We talk a lot about it in the room. How a lot of times these riggers will set these plays up ahead of time, often weeks ahead of time, and a lot of it has to do with the control. Just how there's manipulated control in the intraday, there's also manipulated control on the daily, right? So we'll go over this play, RSLS. Both longed it pre-market and market open. We'll explain why. But what's interesting about this play, obviously it ran. It ran from back here. And the first thing you might think in terms of daily charts is, oh, it's bagged. It has a lot of bag holders in it, which is true. That part is true, and it's bearish, right? It's a bearish factor. However, you need to analyze the control going into the move, and you need to kind of understand the liquidity thesis behind what could make it a good long early, then a good short later, right? Because otherwise, especially if you're a short seller, a lot of people see bagged volume on the daily, stock gets really aggressive, they short right away, right? And it could lead to a lot of losses. So, anyways, RSLS. This is pretty much the whole day. We don't even need to open up anything. A lot of times it is a good idea to go even farther back, but you don't even need to go farther back in this case. The whole chart's right here. Obviously, had this super aggressive pop a week ago, and then it has an offering, right? And not only does it have an offering, you can tell it's extremely low volume in being heavily pushed down into the offering, right? Believe it or not, slightly bullish. Slight bullish factor is when there's a lot of low volume control pushing the stock down, leading into a move. Obviously, one of the best dailies is when the daily's wide open, what's often referred to as a fresh chart. However, there's plenty of charts that have no previous resistance that are not good longs and are actually fantastic shorts. And a lot of that has to do with how the daily, which could be bearish or bullish, depending on what you're looking at, matches up with the intraday, right? You need, especially for longing, you need both, right? You often need like a good, interesting day, especially if you're going to be holding for 30% moves, or in a stronger market, 50, 100, 200% moves. You're going to have, everything kind of needs to come together at the same time, right? So this was actually pretty straightforward to explain. Offering. So post-offering manipulation is relatively normal, especially when the float is really low, because even after a company like RSLS, which has reverse split a million times, does an offering, the float is still small, right? So it's still not difficult to do some type of liquidity squeeze after the offering, right? So here's the offering, right? Dumps the stock. What you often notice, and it's even easier on like a longer time frame, is I like to look at the control going into the manipulation. So it does this offering, and it has this like flat, sideways, zero volume control. And a lot of times they'll even do this. They'll do a little dump right before the move. And a lot of times it actually triggers SSR. I'm surprised they didn't trigger SSR on this. They got pretty close to trigger SSR. Another little common move. In the room, we call it a forced SSR dump before the move. Very common. The Discord, which you can join through the Patreon, also has a lot of dailies, because there's a wide variety of kind of tricks that get used on the daily. So it's good to study all of them and kind of understand the thesis. And then also another thing to consider is the market conditions, right? How strong has the market been? Now, actually, today was a lot weaker than the past really month and a half. But we've had one of the best long markets, since December, early January, right? So something to consider. Even though this pre-market, a lot of times you can get a good sense of how strong the day is going to be by the pre-market action. What's the gapping percentages? What's the volumes? What's the structure? What's the continuation? You get kind of get like a decent idea of how strong the day is going to be, right? So anyway, post-offering manip does this hyper-aggressive, 50% push. Actually, usually bearish, right? A big bearish factor in pre-market is when you get these hyper loose candles. You get these, especially in low floats, you get like these 20%, 30% green candles, like really, really pushing up a stock. Quite bearish, a big bearish factor. It shows a lack of actual support and often indicates some type of liquidity squeeze is happening. And also the order book tends to be quite thin. So a big reason why you get these. This one's more interesting because of the post-offering manipulation, because of the control on the daily, that flat sideways control. And also this isn't up that much, right? This pops 50%, but down here the stock's only up like 20, 30%. Super aggressive pullback to the 1 minute 20, really common in terms of an MA that is used in the beginning of manipulation. 1 minute 20 can be really nice if it's the beginning of the liquidity move. It's not nice after a liquidity squeeze has already happened. It actually becomes a potential short pattern. But yeah, we get this nice pop. We get this nice little increasing volume pullback. These are nice to see back into the MAs, right? And we get a nice little long trap and a short trap here, right? We have this painted 3 level, does this big clear out, gets super, super aggressive after the big clear out, gets really, really aggressive, which is actually bullish. The more aggressive the pullback is after this little short trap or long trap is a bullish factor. The more aggressively it pulls back, the more bullish it is. And I told my room, it's like, we have these 1 minute 20 higher lows, and it's very... All right, sorry, had to make an edit. Family came home. But yeah, anyway. So we get the long trap at 3, soaks on a 1 minute 20. The big risk here is the 1 minute 20 just gets knifed, right? Like, it fakes a bunch of soak and then it knives. So what I said in the room, I was like, well, we want like straight initiation through $3, because $3 is kind of the short trap level from this push, right? And we get a nice big aggressive squeeze through high 8A. Now, something that's bearish about this squeeze and why it might lack continuation potential, and we're going to see it over here, a lot of times when a market maker holds higher lows like this into a squeeze, it's essentially, the market maker is essentially, and I made a recent video about this, letting long chasers in, right? Whenever they let long chasers into a stock with increasing higher lows into a squeeze, it's actually bearish. It's bearish because they often lack continuation potential. The ones that squeeze the highest and squeeze the most are often doing short trap structures, such as like high declared short traps or long traps. But what they often do is they give some type of normal short pattern. They swipe the higher lows, swipe longs who might be chasing, right, and then rotate it. That has a lot more push potential than something just holding a million higher lows into a squeeze. It's one of those. There's a lot of counterintuitive things about low floats in trading in this market, and that's one of them, right? So does a high day clear out and starts pulling back. Now, what gives the market open long the most potential is always the control, how the stock is getting pushed back down, right? So high day clear out has short trap potential because shorts love hitting the high day clear out, right? So a lot of short traps begin with a common pattern that like everyone knows and understands, such as a high day clear out. And a lot of times, the strongest stocks are the stocks that give a short pattern with instant confirmation. These shorts hit it, massive, 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 massive selling. Just force, the algo is just forcing this thing down, gives a little bounce, forms a new lower high. Can't even break the lower high, man. More, look at how forced this is. They're shoving the algo just like, it baits some longs. Longs see this, and they see the second chase candle. Longs love the chase's candle. Algo just dumps straight through the higher lows, right? And then we got the 1 minute 50. And MAs could be interesting because a lot of times MAs either could be very powerful in terms of a legitimate long pattern in the beginning of a move, but they're also used to trap longs who think the MA is going to be really strong, but it ends up being weak. So in this case, it starts propping on the 1 minute 50, 1 minute 50, 1 minute 50, 1 minute 50, all the way until open. And how you have to think about it is, okay, it's like some high day clear out short trap potential, post offering squeeze, tons of control on the downside. The best thing to happen here is for them to knife it through the higher low, shake the longs out, and then rotate it, right? So when this dumps to the lows, I'm like, oh, this is great. This is really, really nice. And in this very specific structure, the Bookmap can actually be very helpful. So Bookmap is great if you use it on the right stock at the right time with the right thesis, right? Essentially, the structure and the liquidity thesis come first. The intraday structure, the daily structure, what your thesis is of why it could squeeze, how it's setting up, the time frame it's setting up. In this case, it's market open. All that stuff's more important than what the book is telling you, because the book could give you a lot of it could show the same signal and give you different results, right? So do not become over reliant on it, I would say. But this one's actually really nice. This one's really nice because we get a dump through the higher lows. You can see the higher lows holding. By the way, this is classic manipulated algo dumping. Here's the chase. Look at the algo hold this as a dump. Look at these dump. Look how aggressive all these dumps. This is classic low flow algo manip that has potential to lead into a big squeeze later, right? But yeah, this one's pretty simple. It gets down to 280. They throw up a bunch of bids. They start removing a bunch of ask. Soak, starts rotating. You go long here. You go long here. It's nice Bookmap confirmation with a larger liquidity thesis, right? And then we'll just go. We actually don't even need the book for the rest of this. I can just go to the chart. So anyway, starts aggressively rotating and stalling. Stalling after aggressive rotations is actually not good if you're long. If you're long and you get a big aggressive move and it starts to stall and do choppy things, it's usually not good, because it invites long chasers to get into the stock, right? So believe it or not, like a stock holding up with a higher low, VWAP higher low, VWAP higher low, VWAP higher low. Wow, VWAP's really strong, right? Look, it's holding up. It's trading crazy volume. It's actually bearish. I was already selling some. I was already afraid. I was already deeply afraid. We call this fake. There's fake VWAP resistance and there's fake VWAP support. And it just depends on where in the structure it is. This is fake VWAP support, which is why there's a big aggressive push. It long traps right below high day. And again, look how the key is always how aggressive this is. And I was like, and I said in my room, oh, VWAP's a target, right? Which is why this swipe happens. Super aggressive, algo controls it, swipes VWAP, but actually this long signal is a little risky because of $3 holding here. So a whole dollar, $half holding as support or resistance is also potentially bearish, right? Fake $3 support, fake whole dollar support. There's also fake whole dollar resistance. It could be really, like you'll see on like the strongest moves, something has an amazing daily, amazing super bullish intraday chart, pushes up to like $4 and starts to get crazy heavy, and even starts long trapping at the top. Pulls back to 370, pushes to 380, long traps, long traps, wrong traps, and then it knifes support, and you're like, oh, this is great. And then it does some manipulated thing, and then it rotates back up and like squeezes straight to $5. You know what I mean? Right? Because everyone thinks the whole dollar resistance is really strong. But yeah, anyway, what's interesting about this, it's the same reason over here, is I was like, oh, this is a little risky because of the $3 holding here. But what they do is they hold the higher low, hold the higher low. So they swipe the VWAP, starts rotating it. This could be long trappy. I thought this might come back, maybe knife back to $3 and then do something. But they actually hold it and initiate it, right? And believe it or not, it's actually bearish, but it's bearish past the liquidity level. Because this is now a painted lower high. High day is obviously the target. At higher lows, higher low, higher, letting higher low chasers, letting them in, letting them, and then this crazy aggressive push. Believe it or not, also bearish. The more aggressive the liquidity squeezes, the more bearish it is. Right? If you want a good example, we longed KZIA off the 1 minute 200 yesterday, particularly over here, and then we were long into this double up halt. And when we saw this, we said, oh, we have to sell right away because of how aggressive the liquidity squeeze is, right? Aggressiveness often implies, and again, every structure is different. You really do have to understand the difference between something like this, something like MCTR or BMGL or something like that, right? And I've talked about those. If you want to hear what I said about those tickers, you could join the Patreon and watch my Sunday reviews. But the more aggressive the liquidity squeeze is, the faster you need to sell. People think, oh, it's so strong, it's so strong. No, it's very bad. Not bad, but you have to be, if you're long, you have to be willing. I was already selling into this up halt and then more on this up halt, and I sold before it even down halted. Anyway, RSLS, right? Holds a higher lows. This $3 is still a target for later. Don't never forget the previous higher lows because they become targets for later. Hyper aggressively squeezes, and what does it do here, right? Starts stalling on the woman, and there's a bunch of fake initiations off the woman in 9. Comes down to the 1 minute 50. Fake 5 minute flag. I made a video about this forever ago. Also holds the 350 level. Fake $0.50 support. Just like I just said with this, right? But just because this hold doesn't mean it's real support. It just means they're executing a larger liquidity move. Obviously, the short trap structure, and then it becomes relevant later. They always become relevant later. Doesn't mean it's going to crack $3 right here, right? Anyway, 3 minute 50, fake $0.50 support, a higher low off of the 1 minute 50, right? Right. You can see the flag. You can see. You can draw anyone. Here's another tip. If you can draw trend lines like most stupid retail people do, I don't know why. I never draw these. It's great to know. It's great to draw them just to understand how other people. By the way, I don't draw a trend line. I just look at the chart. I can just look at it and I know what the trend line is. It's not difficult. But it's great to understand what retail's doing because you can see how long trappy it is, right? Here's the attempted breakout. They don't even swipe the 380. Sometimes it's a cleaner read, short side, if they do push the liquidity level, which is like this 380 paint, but sometimes they don't even do that. What's really important is after they initiate this, what's the reaction, right? Because now we have double higher lows. We have 350 as a target. And then we have the bearishness of the squeeze, right? The higher low into the squeeze is bear, so there's a lot of bearish things going on here. And also post-offering manipulations, they can be strong initially, but they often don't have like insane potential. The only ones that really do like something that did have insane potential for a multitude of different reasons was MLGO. MLGO back in like late March, where it squeezed to like $30. That's a very interesting, very unique structure. And MLGO is just an amazing ticker. It's just an amazing ticker. There's so much to learn about how these stocks move by looking at MLGO. Anyways, long traps comes to VWAP, fake VWAP support. Just how there's fake VWAP support over here that gets swiped. Here's fake VWAP support again. You can even see a little fake initiation and it's selling off. But in terms of midday rotation potential, the bearishness is it puts in a low here. We call this first downtrend break. First downtrend break almost never rotates straight up. And if it does, it's actually bearish. But not only that, look at where the low is. Look at where these lows are. If you're going to be making midday reads, long or short, look left. See if there's more higher lows to fade into, because it's often bait, right? First downtrend break, they like fake this support level and they dump straight through all of them. So, pretty cool chart. Hopefully that was pretty helpful. I might do these once in a while on the YouTubes. I do this all the time. And if you want to join the Discord or the Patreon, I do this all the time. Most of the stuff is in the Sunday reviews, or just stuff I'm posting in the actual Discord itself. And yeah, so I just want to make a video just because people have been joining. Like, oh, I used to watch a lot of your vids, and that's how I kind of knew about you. And I'm like, oh, I should do that a little bit more. I should post a little bit more videos. Just because, you know, I think people just join from word of mouth, but, you know, it's good to post just for the community, right? So this is a cool little, you know, post-offering squeeze, kind of classic topping action, long trap at the top, and it just fades. So, all right, that is it. You guys have a good one. And, yeah, I don't know when I'll make another video. Could be 6 months from now, could be a month from now, I don't know. So, all right, see ya.